Hey, it's Anna. Welcome back to my channel, and I am doing my October readathon. Technically, it's not the last weekend of October, but the true last weekend of October, I am going to see a play with my mom, and it's essentially going to take up the entire Sunday. I still have activities to do Saturday and Sunday, but this just felt like the better weekend to try to get more reading done. And then another reason is because I actually found myself in a place where I had just finished my latest audiobook last night. So I can start this readathon fresh with a fresh audiobook, a fresh physical book, and a fresh ebook, and really see how far I get into each of them, which I feel like I haven't done in a long time. And so I really thought that this would be just like a fun weekend to do this. So like I said, starting out fresh, I have plans for each though. I do have 2 audiobooks selected, I have 2 physical books selected, and I have 2 ebooks selected. So let's kick it off with the audiobook because I think that's going to be the focus of this readathon, especially once I tell you everything I plan to do this weekday/weekend. I have Daydream by Hannah Grace, which I am extremely excited for. I know folks have talked about how her books over time have gotten less and less spicy, and I didn't really care one way or another in Wildfire. That was actually a 5-star read for me. Icebreaker, it seemed like the tropes surrounding the spicy scenes were too much for me, but with Daydream, I'm extremely excited. The cover is the most appealing one to me. You are following Hannah, who's a bookworm, and then Henry, who you've seen in the Maple Hills series before. There's no like spoilers in the descriptions that I'll give, but if you have not read Icebreaker or Wildfire, you're going to see who the couples are in those books in this book again. So it's one of those interconnected standalones. You should read them in order, I think, if you want the full effect. I have listened to all of them now since I'm starting Daydream, and I am really excited to see where it goes. It is a 13-hour audiobook, so we have quite a ways to listen to it, but if there's any book I'm pretty sure I'm going to finish, it's probably that one, especially considering everything I have going on. So I do have a second audiobook, which is The Night Shift by Alex Finlay. I have been reading a lot of romance books, and this is the first time that I'm going to be listening and reading a romance book at the same time in a while. So we're going to see how that goes. I'm excited to have The Night Shift as a backup. My mother told me that she did not see the twist coming in The Night Shift, and her and I have been sharing our Libby app, and so I'm actually really excited to get to it too. I've already renewed this audiobook loan once, so I do want to try to get to it. Then physically, I have 2 books that I want to get to. One that was originally on my TBR and one that was not. The one that was not originally on my TBR, and honestly the one that I'm reading first, is The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. I feel like I fly by all of her books, and so I would not be surprised if I finished this in a day. This is her latest release. It was sent to me by Poison Pen Press. I am super grateful for the relationship that I have with them, so I'm very excited to read this latest release. To my understanding, I'm not going to read the entire back to you, is that we have this brutal murder that happens, and the primary suspect is a mystery man who likes to date victims before he kills them, and so Sydney, our main character, is getting some not the best vibes about her new perfect boyfriend. So of course it seems very obvious in the beginning, but I'm sure Frida's going to take me on a ride in this one, so I'm very excited. If I somehow finish this, then I'm going to start Castle of the Curse. This was a book that my husband bought for me on Buy a Book Day, I think in September, and so I did want to get to it in October. I feel like it fits the vibes of October very well, so that is very exciting. So I have these 2. If I somehow manage to finish these 2, oh my goodness, that would be wild. And then I do have my Kindle here, so I have 2 books on my Kindle chosen. So overall for this readathon, I have 6 books in my arsenal. The first book that I've chosen is Like Cats and Dogs. I am part of Forever Publishing's Discover Forever influencer program for the months of September through January. I'll have a whole video about that at the end of February once I finish the majority of books. And so I do want to read this arc of Like Cats and Dogs. It's like there's a reality TV show called The Cake Off where the 2 folks, right, are the love interests, and I think there's cats and dogs involved. Did I know too much about this? No. I'm not surprised, honestly, but I really wanted to read Love and Bloom from Forever Publishing, but I think I'm going to get that in the mail, and so I've decided to go with this arc, and this is going to be my November arc that I read with them. They have no requirements. I'm just making requirements for myself. And then for the December arc, it's not really an arc because you can get it on Kindle Unlimited, but this is a book that Forever Publishing has picked up to publish, and it is Quicksilver. This is the only book that I'm interested in the December lineup of Forever Publishing right now. I haven't seen another one, so I definitely want to make sure that I get that arc read in December. My other option is I just read more January arcs in December, but it would be nice to actually read a book that they're re-releasing come December. So Quicksilver is going to be my backup book there. Again, unless I make a decision and change my mind about that secondary book, but we'll just see if I get through the first books at all. And then randomly, may as well throw this in, I do have to read one chapter of this book, Coaching Up. My mentor and I at work are reading this together, and I was supposed to read through chapter 2, and I am at chapter 2, and we're meeting at 9 a.m. today. So it's been a quick read. It's just not been a priority because I have other books that I want to read instead of a nonfiction book. So this is something that I'm going to use the readathon to read with for at least a chapter. If I read more chapters of this, that would probably be good for me, but I probably want to finish one of my fun books before reading another chapter in this. So we'll see how often this book makes an appearance this readathon. It is 6:28. I have technically already started the readathon. I'm about 34 minutes in. I've been listening to Daydream. That's how I started my day, and that's realistically how I'm going to continue most of the day. So this Friday, I actually have to check my calendar because I don't remember how many meetings I have, but I'm not excited about the amount of meetings on a Friday. And I feel like that's fair to say. It is fair to not want Friday meetings. I like to use Fridays. Typically, it's like get a lot of my work done day. So I have one 9 a.m. meeting, which is fine. That's my mentoring session, which means I have 2.5 hours to read a chapter of Coaching Up. Let's hope I can do it. And then at 11, I have another meeting. At 12:30, I have another meeting. And then I'm supposed to have a fourth meeting today, but I don't know when that's going to be. So realistically, I'm going to try to get that fourth meeting in the morning and then use my morning for meetings and then go back to listening to Daydream in the afternoon. I do already have some calls from work that I need to do something with. However, I've been trying really hard to keep my work boundaries, not starting until 8 a.m. because I work from home, so trying to keep a generally regulated schedule. So I might start a little early just because I know I should address some of my emails, and I've definitely gotten a little behind due to having to working on big projects. So my plan is for this readathon, I am going to make breakfast, get ready for the day, read a chapter of Coaching Up, but while I'm doing all the other activities, I'll listen to Daydream, go to work, listen to Daydream after work because I have to cut the grass and walk my dogs, and then we'll finally start reading physical books. On Saturday, I have a hair appointment, which always takes time out of a readathon, but again, I feel like it takes less time out than a play because at least while my hair is processing, I can read a book. I always bring a book to the salon. And then at some point Saturday, my mother and I are going to see each other. I don't know when. So that's kind of thrown up in the air, but because she lives about an hour away, that's an hour of audiobook time there and an hour of audiobook time back, which I would have gotten seeing the play with her, but we're not spending as much time together on Saturday as when we see the play next week. So that's why I feel like it makes more sense. And then Sunday, I am going to see my friend for lunch. Again, there's drive time between there. We're not going to spend 5 hours like I think the play is going to be. So that's something where I just feel like even though I have things going on, I feel like this is a good readathon weekend. I also have to reshift my focus back on these readathons because I've been able to hit 30 hours pretty consistently, and I just don't think that's a realistic expectation going forward. So I do think that I have to kind of like check myself there and at least try to get to 24 hours again. My goal would be to finish Daydream and one other book. That would be my realistic goal. I would love to get more than that done, but I think I'm discovering that I'm either just like a very slow reader or I don't know. I feel like that's something that I really want to explore because I feel like I see people finishing books so fast and I'm like, why am I not finishing this book as fast as other people? I feel like I'm devoting a lot of time and effort to it, but I think my reading style might just be different. So I definitely want to do that as a future video one day to figure out how fast I actually read. But in the meantime, we have this readathon to focus on. I have technically about an hour and a half until I usually log in for work. Like I said, I think I want to log in early, but I do have a few things that I want to do beforehand. So I think first I'm actually going to just stay in this setup and read Coaching Up. Just get it out of the way. I do have tabs. The tabs are upstairs. I haven't tabbed too much. So if I really feel the need to tab something, then I'll go upstairs and grab my tabs. But I'll read the chapter here because my mentor and I are meeting today at 9, like I said. So read this first, and then I have some like little chores to take care of. I'd like to take a shower. I'd like to make my breakfast. And then seeing on what time it is, I might log into work early, which means I would temporarily, not be listening to an audiobook because I'm on meetings with people. And then then we'll just see where the day goes from there. So let's start this October readathon with a non-fiction book. That's kind of weird to say. It is a little later into day one of the October readathon. I have finished work, I've taken care of the dogs, I've eaten dinner, which has been great. So I feel very accomplished overall. The majority of the time I have spent listening to the audiobook. I did finish the one chapter of the Coaching Up nonfiction book, which was good. It's interesting reading nonfiction around like a corporate job, just because I never thought that would necessarily be something that I would do. And I think it's really interesting to see how language and interactions that I had when I was in college are so different from the corporate world. So definitely something interesting to take away. I might pick it up again to read another chapter. I have to read 3 more chapters before, not next Friday, but the following Friday. So I do want to make sure that I get that done, probably in a little bit more of a timely manner. I am at 5 hours and 43 minutes. My hope is to get to 8 hours tonight. I feel like that always sets me up in a good place to hit not only 24 hours, but 30 hours in a readathon over the weekend. The majority of my time I've spent listening to Daydream. I definitely don't like Daydream as much as Wildfire personally, but I am still enjoying it. However, I feel like both narrators are just lackluster with assigning voices to other people, and it just confuses me because I feel like they probably put a decent amount of money into the audiobook production. I don't understand why we can't have audiobook narrators that use different voices for different people. So it's another one of those audiobooks that I feel like I have to listen like pretty closely to in order to remember who's talking. So again, there's no spoilers for the first 2 books. This is the 3rd book in a series. We are following Hallie and Henry. A lot of people have been looking forward to Henry's book in the Maple Hill series because you see him in the first 2 books. And so it's Henry and Hallie and discovering, how they feel about each other. Part of the premise is that Hallie just got out of a 1-year-long relationship, but she didn't actually feel like she had any experiences, and she wants to write a story for a story writing contest. And in order to do that, she wants to have some more life experiences. Her and Henry initially meet in a bookstore, and then through Aurora, who is the main female character in book 2, they end up getting closer, and then Hallie and Henry get into this situation where Henry is helping Hallie go on dates because she apparently never went on a date in her 1-year-long relationship, and she wants to write a story about people who live experiences, and so she wants to live some experiences. So I'm liking it so far. I definitely want to keep listening to it. I feel like the beginning was a bit more disjointed than Wildfire was, but I'm also enjoying it more than I enjoyed Icebreaker personally. So overall, I feel like it's a pretty good pick for the audiobook. I'm 4 hours and 44 minutes into it, so that means I did spend an extra hour reading physical books. About a half an hour of that went to the Coaching Up book, and then the other half an hour actually went to my first physical book of the readathon, The Boyfriend. And in the 30 minutes that I read this, I read 36 pages, and that's what I mean where I just don't know my reader speed, but I'm definitely interested. We have dual timelines in this book and dual perspectives, which is always interesting and I think makes Frida book way more twisty. So I at least want to read this for an hour today. And then I do have like Cats and Dogs already loaded on my Kindle, and I also want to read that for an hour. I think it's a good idea that I do have the Frida McFadden book as like the buffer thriller between the 2 romance books. So I will definitely be picking up the Frida McFadden book first to read and then get back to like Cats and Dogs afterwards. It is 6:29. I don't typically go to sleep until closer to 9 o'clock. So that is my plan, is to hopefully read enough until 9 and then I'll hit 8 hours. I will say it is Miami night 1 for the Eras tour. I do want to see what the surprise songs are, so I may stay awake to watch those. And I don't know if I would listen to an audiobook, continue to read a book. We'll just have to see where I get to once I start reading the physical books. So clearly my dog loves to sleep on this chair couch once I put my feet up. So I'm going to put my feet up and get to reading, continuing on with this readathon. I'll most likely check back in the morning of day 2 before I go to my hair appointment with whatever I end up reading tonight. It is day 2 of the October Readathon. I am at 9 hours and 46 minutes. It is almost 7:30 in the morning, so I feel like we're getting a pretty good start to day 2. Day 1, I did start both of my physical books, so I do have some thoughts on both of them. I also listened to a little bit more of Daydream, and this morning I do have to go and get my hair done. So I am going to bring to the salon Like Cats and Dogs. I feel like this book is another one where I'm just like, I didn't know how much I would like this like reality TV type of romance until I've been reading so many of them, because I really do thoroughly enjoy them. So I've read 26% of Like Cats and Dogs so far, which I feel like is very good for me. And I think hopefully today, because I just have to get my hair done and then I'm seeing my mother later today, I have quite a bit of time to dig into this. I feel like it's a pretty quick read. You're following Magda and Mackenzie / Mac. They are in the same town. They had this rivalry. We don't know all the details of the rivalry yet, but somehow the people of the Great American Cake Off saw it on social media and decided to have Magda and Mackenzie on for their arch rival version of the Great American Cake Off. And Mags has no idea that Mac is going to be there. And Mac, he feels kind of bad about it, but at the same time, he's like, well, they wouldn't have taken her unless they took me, which obviously I think Mac is going to go through some growth in this book. And then the Like Cats and Dogs, because you're like, that has nothing to do with cats or dogs, is that Mac has a cat that really bugs her, and Magda has a dog that's like really scared of the cat. So I feel like their animals tie in a bit. There's also a cat and a dog at the inn that they are staying at. So very interesting. I love cozy baking in general, and then reality baking shows. I feel like I have read a lot of books with that type of like description in it. So I'm really interested to see how it goes. I am liking the competitiveness, the mystery of learning what their rival is about. I am really interested to keep reading. I also think it's just easier to bring the Kindle to the salon. I know people usually have smaller Kindles than this, but I feel like this is just a bit easier. And because this is an advanced reader copy, I know it'll help my NetGalley rating, so I do want to read it. But I also want to keep reading The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. You can see I'm a decent portion in. I would say that, I don't know, a little less than a third, I think. Hold on. I don't know how many pages total this is, and I don't want to spoil it for myself. So there's 359 pages, and I'm on 119. So yeah, I'm pretty much like exactly a third of the way through, actually. So that's pretty exciting. I definitely want to read this, but again, I don't know how much people judge people with like their books or whatever at the hair salon. And you know, the cover looks a little salacious until you see the blood down here. So I definitely want to keep reading it. So I feel like if I can focus on like Cats and Dogs in the hair salon, and then I can read The Boyfriend right when I get home. I was balancing the two just by, I don't know, about like an hour increment each last night. And then I kind of threw that out the window once it got late enough. But I do have a bookmark for this one, which is exciting. We have not met Sydney's boyfriend yet. So on the back of the book, it talks about how she thinks she's finally hit the jackpot with her boyfriend, but then there's a brutal murder of like a young woman, and the police are starting to look for this person. So it's interesting because I thought we would meet Sydney's boyfriend way earlier in this book, but we haven't yet. So we have gotten to a brutal murder in this book already, and we are looking at Sydney's life and seeing, you know, being 34 and single, some of the struggles that she's having, but also she went on this really terrible date, and so she's kind of like recovering from that. And then we are getting thrown in this before perspective with a man named Tom. I don't fully know who Tom is, but in Tom's perspective, he's like obsessed with this girl named Daisy, and he doesn't want to end up hurting her, and it's alluding that like he's hurt people before. So that's where I'm at in this. I am liking it. I don't think it's obviously like The Housemaid. I don't think it's the same level as The Housemaid's Secret, which is my favorite Frida McFadden book, but I am still interested in reading this. That's why it's so hard to like decide which one I'm gonna bring, but I feel like this cover makes a little bit more sense. People might assume that it's a spicier book because it's a cartooned cover, but I haven't gotten there yet, if there is any. And then with this book, you know, I don't really know. I definitely think people judge books by their covers, and you know, people don't always bring books to the salon. So that's why I want to stick with Like Cats and Dogs. And technically, since I'm a third of the way through The Boyfriend and not a third of the way through Like Cats and Dogs, I think this will be good to try to like catch up to each other. And then I have listened more to Daydream. I think we're getting to the first spicier scene of Daydream right now. So I am almost 50% of the way way into the book. And I feel like that has made sense with this specific characterization. Hallie is not the most outgoing person sexually, so I think it makes sense that we haven't had a spicier scene until later. So I think the progression, I've actually really liked it. But again, sometimes I'm confused on like when we are in the timeline. I don't know if there are breaks in the physical book that I just don't see in the audiobook, and that's why I get confused sometimes. I feel like the hockey games are completely just like skirted over. They're not really talked about too much. But then because we've had a hockey game or 2 hockey games, I know time has moved forward. So it's just a little bit tricky there. And also again, the audiobook narrators, they aren't doing different voices for people, so it still makes it confusing. That's where we are. Start of day 2. I don't know the next time I'll update during the day of day 2, just because I don't know exactly how much I'll read during the salon trip. We'll just have to see. But I'll definitely talk to you after I see my mother today, because it takes me about 30 minutes to go where we're meeting. And so I will definitely have listened to at least an hour more of Daydream and can definitely give my thoughts and opinions there. I'm really hopeful to finish Daydream during this readathon and then to start The Night Shift by Alex Finlay, but we'll see. Don't want to get too ahead of myself. So let's go to the salon. So we are on day 2. I saw my mother. I just wanted to read for the afternoon. I finished eating dinner, walked the dog. So now I'm here to give you an update on how this readathon is going. I've read for 16 hours and 59 minutes. So essentially we're at 17 hours, which is really low for the readathons that I've been having lately, but that's okay because I feel like next weekend it still would have been pretty low. And it is 6:24 right now in the evening. So as long as I don't yap too much, I can hopefully get 3 more hours of reading in and then round out the day at 20, making tomorrow a super chill day to get 4 hours to at least reach 24 hours. I can't see a world in where I get 30 just based off of everything that I have going on, but you never know. So I want to start with the book where I am only 52% of the way through it, which is Like Cats and Dogs. And it's not because I'm not liking it at all. I am actually really enjoying Like Cats and Dogs. I love the reality TV arch nemesis. We're seeing a lot of reflection from both perspectives of Mac and Mags. And we also get Julia, who is the producer of the TV show. We get her perspective. I thought that was a really interesting place to be thrown in because I would have never thought of seeing how like a producer felt about producing an arch rivals type of show around baking. So I think that was really interesting to see. We have gotten to some quirky moments. I love the baking and just hearing about it too. So I am really all for Like Cats and Dogs right now. And I definitely want to devote at least an hour additionally of reading this tonight. So hopefully I can get a little bit further in it. But again, I've been balancing with some other books, and that other book that I've been balancing with is still The Boyfriend. We have met the boyfriend now. I am about 2/3 of the way through, I would say. We've met the boyfriend. He is there. I am suspicious of everyone, but that's how I usually approach Frida McFadden books anyway, is that I'm constantly suspicious of them. And so I want to at least give myself, again, an hour to read this too, so that way I have 1 hour for Like Cats and Dogs, 1 hour for The Boyfriend, and then that last hour, I guess, is kind of a toss-up. I feel like I might try to finish The Boyfriend tonight. I feel like I've made a lot of progress, even in the little bit of time that I have read it. It's 360 pages, as we've said, and I'm at 224. So that's only 135 pages, which I could probably do in 2 hours with my general reading speed of Frida McFadden books, but we'll just have to see. I am not as gripped by this one necessarily as I was with The Housemaid's Secret specifically, but I'm still curious of where this is going to go. I love seeing all the puzzle pieces eventually fall together. I know there are clues that I miss. I'm suspicious of everybody, and I feel like because I'm suspicious of everybody, I can't even make a good judgment guess on what's actually going to happen with the plot twist, because I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen, because I'm suspicious of every single person in this book. Every single one. There's nobody who I see as innocent in this book. Not a soul. And then I only have 3 hours left of the audiobook Daydream, and I feel like this is definitely what I like in terms of a more cozy adult romance. It definitely has different vibes than Wildfire, and I feel like the title Wildfire just makes sense. Daydream, I feel like, fits this vibe very well. I know people are, concerned with Hannah taking out more of the spicier scenes in this book particularly, but I feel like that's just how the relationship has progressed in this book. It's still kind of choppy. Time is still a little bit loose, I feel like, in this book, but I'm definitely excited to see where it's going to go. But I swear, if there's a 3rd act breakup in this book, I'm going to be so mad just because in one of the scenes that is in this book, and I don't necessarily think it's a spoiler, but you have our two main love interests and one of them is trying to distract the other with something sexual and the other main character is like, no, we're not doing that right now. Let's sit down and communicate. How can you have a third act breakup if you are constantly communicating like that? I won't get it if that's actually what happens. I will actually be so upset. So I do have some chores that I could do tonight, and so I might end up listening to an hour of the audiobook. I also don't know how tired my eyes are going to be after reading more of the books, so that's why I might switch to listening to the audiobook to really get to that 20 hours. But yeah, my day tomorrow is also filling up beyond just getting lunch with a friend. I'm supposed to Zoom with a friend. I might go and see my uncle, and I'm like, oh, okay. So there was not any really good weekend in October for a readathon of completely staying home, but I also feel like that's okay because on readathon weekends, I definitely prioritize reading more than I do on my regular weekends, and I feel like that's a challenge to myself to stay present in the books, not worry about everything else that's going on, because realistically, it can wait. So I'm super excited to keep reading these. I'm curious to see where I'll end up, so I'll definitely give an update before I go get lunch with my friend, and then I'm driving like over an hour to get them, so that means I will definitely be finishing Daydream. I would love to finish both of these books. I would love to get both of them done. I'm fairly confident I'll finish this one. It's just this one. I'm just not sure if I'll have enough time to sit and read it, but I want to finish it. I want to be able to sit and read it. So let's stop my yapping and let's get back to reading for our October readathon. All right, it is day 3 of the October readathon. I am starting it reading in bed. I listened to an audiobook for a little bit this morning. I did get to 20 hours on day 2, so I'm feeling pretty good going into day 3, at least hitting 24 hours. Am I gonna get anywhere further than that? I honestly don't know. My afternoon feels very booked, but I could be very, very wrong. I'm currently at 21 hours and 53 minutes, and I've finished 2 books since my last update, which is very exciting. I decided to just power through The Boyfriend and finish it. It was not that hard to power through. I actually couldn't put it down after a certain point. Frida's twists are always very interesting, and I definitely always have suspicions, and then usually I'm wrong, even if I am suspicious about everybody. So I did really enjoy this. I'm trying to think of where it falls. It's not a 5-star for me personally. I think it was a lot of backstory in the beginning. I don't know. So it's above a 4, I think. So maybe it's either at a 4 or a 4.5. But I definitely did enjoy this. I could see more in this universe, so I'll be interested to see, depending on how well this does, if more follows the characters in this book, but we'll just have to see. And then I also finished the audiobook Daydream. I'm thinking that that one is also somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5. I don't think it gave me the same intensity as Wildfire that I really liked, but I also feel like it was a really cute, cozy story, and so I did really enjoy it. And there wasn't technically a third act breakup, but there was definitely like some conflict there, so at least it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So that's where I'm not sure 100% where I want to rate it yet, but I did really like it. So with those 2 books down, I do have 1 book left to go, which is Like Cats and Dogs. I am currently 61% of the way through this, and so I don't have to leave to pick up my friend until 10:30. So I have about 3 hours, and I always forget I can do this on my Kindle. I can see about how long it's going to take me to finish it. So it says I'm supposed to finish this in 2 hours and 12 minutes based off of my current reading speed. So hopefully I'll be able to finish it in that time, and then I will have finished a book from every medium. And then I haven't picked up another physical book, but I do have another audiobook, The Night Shift by Alex Finlay. I'm definitely gripped into this book right away. I actually want to keep listening to it, so I'm excited to have time to definitely listen to an audiobook. If I have that much time, or if I finish Like Cats and Dogs any earlier really than the 2 hours and 12 minutes, I don't know what I want to pick up. I don't know if I just get Quicksilver on my Kindle right away. I don't know if I pick up Castle of the Cursed for a physical book. I don't really know yet, so we're just gonna have to see the vibes of where this is going. And then again, my afternoon is potentially fairly packed, getting lunch with someone, Zooming with someone else, maybe seeing family again. There is the WNBA finals on tonight, so I don't really know what it's gonna look like for me after this, but we will just have to see. So I'm excited to finish Like Cats and Dogs as well. That way I'll have finished 3 books during this readathon, which I feel like is really good. And then hopefully I'll be able to start another physical book and an ebook during this, just kind of keep myself going, keep the momentum built for the end of this month. So let's get into Like Cats and Dogs. We are at the end of the October readathon, and I read for 27 hours and finished a total of 3 books, which means that I finished Like Cats and Dogs. I definitely thought this was a cute romance. I thought there was like no spice in this book at all, which I'm not totally against. I feel like I have a very particular spice level that I like. And so I feel like this is gonna, again, be around a 4 to a 4.5. I feel like all the books I read this weekend were very, very entertaining. And then I was looking for my next book on NetGalley through Forever Publishing, and I tried to do Quicksilver, but apparently you can't request it on NetGalley. Oopsie daisy. Was not aware of that at all. So I decided to pick up one of my most anticipated reads of 2025 that I'm very, very lucky to have an arc for, which is No Place Left to Hide by Megan Lally. We are 5% in. I already don't want to put it down. There's something about her writing. I loved it with That's Not My Name. I know some people said it was predictable, just like with Freida McFadden. I could care less. I didn't think it was predictable. And so I'm really excited to keep reading this. Again, I'm only 5% in, so I don't really know too much about it, but I can already tell we have a lot of mystery going on, and I feel like there's going to be a ton of twists. So I'm super excited to talk about that one more, especially in my pre-orders for 2025 video, since I don't have to pre-order it. It's weird how once you understand kind of how the book world works and understanding arcs, what you can get, it's just kind of crazy to me. I also did start Castle of the Cursed. I really forgot what this one was about, and my husband definitely just bought it based on the cover. And then there are some trigger warnings at the beginning of the book, so I sent him a picture of it, and I was like, luckily I'm fine to read this, but maybe we should open books next time before we buy them. So I'm 4 pages in. I'm definitely interested to see how it goes. I will obviously be continuing to read it, but just not during this readathon. The book that I did actually make process in, and I'm about, I think, a third of the way through, if not a little bit more, is The Night Shift by Alex Finlay. Absolutely fantastic audiobook so far in terms of I am learning who the characters are. The audiobook narrators are fine with voices. I feel like I have such high expectations, especially after listening to the Gilded ones earlier this year, but I feel like I'm understanding who's talking the majority of the time, except with one perspective. That's my only kind of like half star off so far, is that it's a little clunky in one of the perspectives, but otherwise I've been really enjoying it, and I don't know fully what's going to happen. So The Night Shift, you're following an FBI investigator and also a trauma therapist as they try to figure out what happened at this dairy creamery stabbing where 2 girls lost their lives, but there was 1 survivor. The thing is, 15 years before, at the same spot, it used to be a Blockbuster, and I believe it was 3 girls that died with 1 survivor. And the trauma therapist is the survivor, so 15 years older. She's working with the new survivor at the dairy creamery to figure out kind of like what's going on. And then the FBI is involved because they're trying to see if the person that they suspected did the Blockbuster stabbings is connected to this dairy creamery one. So it's very interesting. And then you also have the perspective of the brother of who the FBI is hunting. You get his perspective and seeing him also trying to find his brother. So very, very interesting. I feel like this is the book that has gripped me the most by Alex Finlay so far, and I'm interested to continue reading it. I'm still proud to have finished 3 books this weekend, which was The Boyfriend, Like Cats and Dogs, and Daydream. So overall, I think a pretty successful October readathon. I don't know if October is actually going to be my lowest reading month. We'll just have to see, but I am excited to have 2 books to have started to continue the momentum. And then I'm actually in the middle of 2 other books that I decided not to talk about at all in this video. So I will also be continuing to read those. If I can read all those by the end of the month, that'll be, 4 more books plus whatever audiobooks I listen to. So we'll see where I'm at overall with my reading for the month of October. So I feel like I have some fun videos planned for November, looking at little free libraries, talking a little bit about NetGalley, and we'll see kind of like what else comes up along the way. So definitely keep following along. If there's anything specific you want to see, definitely let me know in the comments. And don't forget to keep on reading.